So somewhere at the very bottom of the Pacific Ocean right now, there is a robotic submarine, and it's laying down this glass cable, roughly the width of a garden hose.
Right, just a tiny little thing.
Yeah, but that hose is carrying like 99% of the world's digital weight.
It's mind-boggling when you actually stop and think about it.
It really is. I mean, we love to use all these floaty words, right? Like the cloud or cyberspace or wireless. It creates this really comforting illusion that our digital lives are just sort of weightless magic.
Just data floating in the ether.
Exactly. But the reality is it's incredibly heavy. The internet is this massive, loud industrial machine. It's full of spinning disks and copper wire and physical glass just running across the literal seafloor.
Yeah, it's a giant physical logistics operation masquerading as invisible magic.
And today we are going to look at what happens when that illusion of weightlessness completely shatters. So
Yeah.
welcome to Calm Coding.
Thanks. I mean, it's great to be here for this analysis, the collision between our digital intentions and, the messy, totally uncooperative physical world. It's arguably the defining conflict in modern technology right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission for today's exploration into the sources is to really examine that massive friction, the friction between our grand technological ambitions and the physical realities of the infrastructure we have to build.
Because they do not always align at all.
Not even a little bit. And we've got a fascinating stack of recent cybersecurity reports and industry news to go through today. We're covering a pretty jarring military data leak, a breach at a major cybersecurity firm, a highly controversial state law that's attempting to target encryption, and finally, this is the crazy one, a frankly wild plan to put AI data centers out on the ocean.
Yeah, that ocean one is, well, it's quite a collection of events. And when you read through these security bulletins, you really start to see the through line, which is that physical geography and hardware are just the ultimate anchors for everything we try to do in software.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the very foundation of security. The physical infrastructure, and what actually happens when the most basic digital locks are just completely forgotten.
Right.
We are looking at a massive leak of over 70,000 U.S. Army files.
Yeah, and when people hear the phrase military data leak, they almost always picture like a sophisticated nation-state operation.
Oh, for sure. Dark rooms, green texts, scrolling on a screen.
Exactly. You imagine elite hackers writing custom zero-day exploits and executing these really complex cyber espionage campaigns over months. But the reality in these recent reports is, well, it's far more mundane. And honestly, far more concerning.
Yeah, because this wasn't a master heist. This was an open directory listing vulnerability.
The most basic of errors.
Literally the most basic. And just to be clear on the mechanics for you listening, this occurred on a server belonging to CMI Management, Inc. They're a government contractor, they're part of the Dexterra Group, and they handle facility services.
Right, they manage the physical buildings.
Yeah. And an open directory, I mean, it isn't a hack in the traditional sense. It essentially means a web server like an Apache or an Nginx server was misconfigured so that instead of serving a normal web page, it just displayed a raw navigable list of every single file in the folder.
It's literally just a file explorer open to the public web.
Yeah. There were no access control lists, no authentication tokens required. Anyone who stumbled across the IP address or the URL could just, click and download whatever they wanted. It's the equivalent of, I don't know, leaving the master blueprints of a maximum security fortress taped to the front gate for over a year.
That's exactly what it is. And what's fascinating here is the direct translation of digital negligence into acute physical danger.
Mm-hmm.
Like the IT failure is remarkably simple. But look at the actual implications of what was sitting in that folder. We aren't talking about public press releases here.
No, not at all.
The exposed data includes highly sensitive personnel records, contractor schedules, maintenance forms, internal emails, and crucially, this is the big one detailed photographs and schematics of the insides of military bases.
Which is just terrifying. And the timeline of this exposure is where it crosses from a simple mistake into just systemic negligence.
Oh, the timeline is the worst part.
It really is. So the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, was officially notified about this exact open directory by a security researcher. His name is Arkadeep Roy, and he told them all the way back in 2024.
Wow. 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yet an investigation by Cyber News revealed that this directory was still actively leaking files to the open web as of April 2026, a full 2 years after the government was
The
warned.
bureaucratic failure to remediate that is just staggering. I mean, CISA likely notified the contractor, but without a mechanism to actually force them to fix it, the server just sat there.
Just sitting there, open to the breeze.
Exactly. And the physical risk created by this digital oversight is immense. If you leak a database of credit card hashes, that's a purely digital cleanup.
Right, you issue new cards, maybe do some credit monitoring.
Exactly. But if you leak the HVAC maintenance schedules, electrical routing diagrams, and internal structural photographs of a military installation, you are providing threat actors with a literal physical roadmap.
Yeah.
You're allowing adversaries to map structural weak points, locate critical infrastructure within the base, and identify security camera blind spots, all without ever setting foot near the perimeter fence.
It's chilling. And I keep thinking about the human element, too, because if an adversary downloads those personnel records and contractor schedules, they don't even need to hack the base's network anymore.
Nope. They have the social engineering playbook handed to them.
Right. If they know a facility manager's internal email format, their daily schedule, and the exact verbiage of the maintenance requests they filed over the last year, they can craft perfectly targeted phishing emails.
Or even worse.
Yeah, they can physically impersonate a known vendor, show up at the physical gate with the right paperwork, and just gain unauthorized access to the installation.
And that is the crux of the issue. The digital failure bypasses the physical guards entirely.
Which, well, that brings up a pretty troubling dynamic, because if government facilities contractors are struggling to put basic access controls on their servers, how are the actual security experts faring?
That is the million-dollar question right there.
Right. So we're moving from a failure of basic administrative hygiene to a targeted strike on an industry giant. We need to talk about Trellix.
Yeah, we do. Trellix is an absolute behemoth in the endpoint security space. Just for context for you listening, they were formed in 2021 from the merger of two massive legacy entities, McAfee Enterprise and FireEye.
Two huge names.
Massive. They deploy security software across countless Fortune 500 networks and government agencies.
And the recent industry news confirms that Trellix suffered a breach where attackers gained unauthorized access to a portion of their source code repository.
Which is never what you want to hear from your security vendor.
No, definitely not. Now, the company has stated that so far, there is no evidence that their software release processes were affected or exploited. And they currently have third-party experts conducting a full forensic investigation.
Standard incident response protocol.
Right. But the reports are missing the critical details we all actually want to know. We don't know who the attackers are, we don't know their entry vector, and we don't know if this involves a data extortion attempt.
Yeah. And this raises an important question. What are the true systemic stakes when a foundational security vendor gets hacked? Because this isn't just about Trellix losing a proprietary algorithm,
Sure. But I want to push back on that panic just a little bit, though, because we hear about source code leaks constantly. It happens to game developers, operating system vendors, app creators, all the time.
Fair point. It is a common headline.
Right. So if Trellix is confident that the software updates weren't poisoned, meaning they didn't push malicious code out to their actual customers, and if we don't even know if data was exfiltrated yet, isn't it premature for the industry to sound the alarm? Does just the mere access to the code fundamentally change the threat landscape?
Well, the short answer is yes. In the realm of cybersecurity tooling, read-only access to source code fundamentally changes the game.
Really? Just reading it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think of source code like the DNA of a digital immune system. If an advanced persistent threat actor steals that DNA, they aren't attacking you today.
Okay.
Instead, they take that code back to an offline lab environment. They compile it, they run automated fuzzing tools against it, and they just analyze every single logic flow.
Ah, so they're looking for the blind spots.
Exactly. They're engineering a bespoke virus perfectly evolved to slip past your specific white blood cells tomorrow. They use the source code to find zero-day vulnerabilities in the very software that is installed to protect enterprise networks globally.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. And the historical context of the companies involved makes that even more chilling, I guess, because we have to remember the legacy of FireEye, which makes up half of Trellix's DNA.
It's impossible to ignore that history here.
Right. The industry reports explicitly remind us of that massive 2020 breach where state-sponsored attackers compromised FireEye and stole their internal red team tools.
Which was basically the opening salvo of the infamous SolarWinds supply chain hack. And for those familiar, red team tools are these specialized, highly advanced hacking programs that security companies actually develop themselves to test their clients' defenses.
Right. They're like lockpicks made by the locksmith.
Exactly. They are essentially sanctioned cyber weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So when those were stolen in 2020, the attackers walked away with an arsenal of exploits.
Yep.
So while Trellix is definitely following best practices right now by bringing in external incident response and being transparent about the release process, the entire cybersecurity ecosystem is basically holding its breath. The potential fallout from an endpoint detection vendor's code being mapped by an adversary is just exponential.
It's the ultimate who guards the guards scenario.
Completely.
But if physical geography is a trap for contractors, like we saw with the Army leak, and software complexity is a trap for security vendors, the only thing worse is when the law tries to rewrite the rules of both.
Oh boy. Yes.
Which takes us to a massive clash between technical reality and legislative intent over in Utah.
Yeah, and before we delve into the mechanics of this legislation, we really need to establish a very strict boundary for our analysis today.
Yes, absolutely. Just to be totally clear with you listening,
Sure.
the industry bulletins we are referencing discuss a highly charged political and societal debate regarding age verification laws and online safety.
Right, and we are maintaining absolute political impartiality here.
100%. We are not taking any stance on the intent of the lawmakers or the societal debate surrounding legislation designed to restrict content for minors.
No, our focus is strictly on reporting the engineering friction and the technical compliance reality detailed in the sources.
I'm really glad you set that boundary because we are looking purely at the network mechanics here.
Yeah.
So here are the facts from the reports. Utah has passed Senate Bill 73, which went into effect on May 6, 2026.
Yeah.
And this makes Utah the very first U.S. state to explicitly target the use of virtual private network, or VPNs, when those tools are used to bypass state age verification mandates.
Right, which sounds straightforward on paper, but...
But the controversy centers entirely on the legal phrasing. The law insists that individuals are legally considered to be accessing a website from Utah if they are physically located within the state's borders, regardless of whether a VPN is actively masking their location.
And the reaction from the digital rights and network engineering communities has just been blistering.
Oh, completely.
I mean, Leah Holland from the advocacy group Fight for the Future heavily criticized the technical viability of the law. She slammed it as a waste of money and stated it is literally impossible by design.
She didn't hold back at all.
Not at all. She even remarked that the text of the legislation reads like AI slop because it legally mandates a capability that the fundamental architecture of the internet simply does not possess.
So what does this all mean? Because if you're listening to this and you use a VPN for, say, remote work or just general privacy, you're probably wondering how on earth Utah plans to enforce this on an encrypted connection.
Yeah, a lot of network engineers are wondering the exact same thing.
Because I am really struggling to see the enforcement mechanism here. If I run a global tech platform, I can't break my own users' encryption just to check if they happen to be sitting in a coffee shop in Salt Lake City. Am I missing some new capability, or are lawmakers just writing science fiction here, hoping the tech will eventually catch up to the law? Or is there a genuine technical path to enforcing this?
You aren't missing anything. It is a profound misunderstanding of network routing protocols. And it really touches on a core belief about technology, which is that knowledge is most valuable when it reflects how systems actually operate in reality.
Right. Not how we wish they operated.
Exactly. Lawmakers are attempting to legislate against the foundational mechanics of TCP/IP. When a user in Utah turns on a reputable VPN, their device creates an encrypted tunnel to a server, let's say over in Tokyo.
Okay, so the tunnel goes straight to Japan.
Right. And when the web traffic leaves that Tokyo server to go to whatever the destination website is, the geographic origin data from Utah has been entirely stripped. It's replaced by the Tokyo IP address.
It's gone.
Completely gone. The website receives the packet, and at the mathematical level, that user is in Japan.
So the website physically cannot comply.
They cannot.
The geographic borders of Utah are fixed, but the encryption standard is inherently borderless. So if a business literally cannot peek through the encryption to verify a user's physical presence in Utah, what are their actual options to avoid liability under this law?
Well, according to the industry analysis in our sources, the options left for businesses are incredibly drastic, and really, none of them are good for an open internet. They essentially have four choices.
Okay.
One, they can attempt to identify the IP addresses of every single commercial VPN server globally and just block all VPN traffic entirely.
Which alienates privacy-conscious users worldwide and completely harms remote workers.
Right. Two, they can mandate global age verification, requiring users in Europe or Asia to submit IDs just to ensure no one from Utah happens to slip through the cracks.
Also a massive friction point.
Three, they can globally censor any content that triggers Utah's criteria.
Or four, which is what Fight for the Future bluntly suggested. They can just pool their resources and sue Utah to have the law struck down.
Which might be the most likely outcome.
Yeah, and looking at the broader industry reaction, it seems tech companies are recognizing this impossible compliance burden. NordVPN issued a statement calling the law a liability trap because, there's no way to prove you successfully blocked someone you couldn't even identify in the first place.
Exactly. How do you prove a negative?
Right. And the Electronic Frontier Foundation called it a game of technical whack-a-mole. Even other states are paying attention to the friction here. Wisconsin recently scrapped a similar bill after reviewing the technical backlash.
It perfectly illustrates the theme of our session today. You simply cannot pass a local statute that successfully overrides global network protocols. Legislation relies on physical borders, but data packets do not respect them.
They really don't. So if land-based infrastructure is vulnerable to human error and geographic borders are bogged down by impossible compliance laws, what is the tech industry's ultimate escape hatch?
Well, it's pretty drastic.
It is. The answer, according to our final set of sources, is to just leave the land entirely. We are taking to the seas.
This is perhaps the most vivid, physical manifestation of digital desperation I have seen in recent years.
Desperation is a good word for it.
The scale of the engineering proposed here is staggering, and it is entirely driven by the sheer computational weight of modern software.
So here is the scenario outlined in the industry news. Samsung Heavy Industries has just unveiled a massive model of a floating data center ship.
A ship, just full of servers.
Yes, and this isn't just some conceptual render for a decade from now. Samsung and OpenAI actually signed a letter of intent back in October 2025 to explore this. This floating facility is specifically designed to house future, incredibly power-hungry iterations of AI large language models, like advanced versions of ChatGPT.
Which require immense amounts of hardware.
Exactly, and they are working with a Dallas-based infrastructure partner called Mysterion Core. Their target is borderline unbelievable. They want to deploy 1.5 gigawatts of computing capacity in just 36 months.
To put 1.5 gigawatts into perspective for you, that is the equivalent electrical output of a massive nuclear reactor facility. Or, frankly, enough power to run a mid-sized city dedicated entirely to powering AI computation.
It's nuts.
And the strategy here is a direct response to the terrestrial power grid failing to keep up with digital ambition. Like if you want to build a 1.5 gigawatt land-based data center right now, you might wait 5 to 7 years just to navigate local zoning, get the environmental permits, and secure grid interconnection approvals.
Yeah, you're stuck in red tape for half a decade.
Exactly.
And the CEO of Mysterion, Min Su, had a quote in the reports that completely captures the mindset of the AI arms race right now. He said, "Speed to power is the new mode."
Wow.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's basically offshore drilling, but instead of pulling oil out of the ocean, we're pumping artificial intelligence into the cloud.
That is a great way to look at it.
Right. By building these barges and shipyards and just docking them offshore, they plan to plug directly into coastal thermal or nuclear power plants, completely bypassing those local municipal grid bottlenecks.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really explains the underlying mechanics of AI development. Because training a next-generation large language model isn't just about data storage.
No, it's about processing.
Right. It requires tens of thousands of highly specialized GPUs firing simultaneously for months on end. That requires immense continuous electrical draw, and crucially, it generates massive amounts of heat.
Which is always the enemy of hardware.
Always. So sitting on an ocean of cold water theoretically solves two physical problems at once. You bypass the land-based power bureaucracy, and you have an infinite heat sink for your cooling infrastructure. They are trying to reduce deployment timelines from years down to quarters.
But, and this is a big but, the ocean is arguably the most hostile environment on Earth for delicate electronics.
Oh, without a doubt.
The reports outline some massive physical risks with this gamble. You are placing highly specialized, multi-million-dollar server racks into a saltwater environment, which is aggressively corrosive.
Salt spray gets into everything.
Everything. And you have to engineer around severe storms, wave action, tidal shifts. There are complex physical access issues for maintenance crews if, say, a server bank goes down during a squall.
Right, you can't exactly just drive a tech out in a van to fix a router.
No, you need a boat or a helicopter.
And don't forget the networking challenge, too. You have to route massive, high-capacity fiber optic cables from a moving barge down through the turbulent surf zone, avoiding ship anchors and fishing nets just to splice into the terrestrial internet backbone.
It sounds like a nightmare for the network team.
It is. Plus, the 36-month timeline they are projecting relies on shipbuilding and regulatory schedules that are completely unproven at this scale.
It is an incredible engineering gamble, but the fact that multi-billion-dollar conglomerates are pouring resources into this really proves just how constraining the physical world has become.
It really does.
The land is tapped out of power, it is tangled in local bureaucracy, and it is governed by a patchwork of conflicting laws. So the data simply looks to the water.
It is the unavoidable anchor. No matter how advanced, ethereal, or intelligent the software becomes, it must eventually execute on physical silicon hardware, powered by raw electricity, residing in a specific physical environment.
Yeah. Which brings this entire exploration full circle for you as a listener. When you log on or verify an account or ask an AI to write an email, you are interacting with physical infrastructure that is under immense compounding strain.
It's groaning under the weight of it all.
Right. So whether we are looking at a government contractor failing to configure a basic digital lock on the blueprints to a physical base, or a massive security firm trying to guard the source code that dictates the safety of our networks.
Or a state legislature attempting to build geographic fences out of impossible legal text.
Exactly. Or an AI giant building massive ships just to find enough electricity. The messy, heavy physical reality of infrastructure is always the ultimate bottleneck.
The illusion of the weightless cloud is gone. We are firmly in the era of heavy computing.
We really are. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder as we wrap up today. We've seen that AI companies are already making plans to move to the oceans just to find enough electricity and bypass local grid bureaucracy. So, how long until we see rogue, fully unregulated data centers floating in international waters, operating entirely outside the jurisdiction of any nation's laws?
Now that is a truly unsettling extension of where this maritime infrastructure race could eventually lead.
It's something to think about. Thank you for joining us for today's session of Com Coding. Stay curious.